And now to another troubled economy, Cuba, where a delegation from the U.S. began historic talks to normalize relations between the two countries after a half-century standoff, talks that could have a big impact on American business. Eamon Javers has more from Havana.
At the famous Hotel Nacional, a small group of American tourists watched Obama's speech on live television from a most unlikely location, right in the heart of Castro's Cuba.
It's this wonderfully ironic experience to be sitting in Cuba, in Havana, Cuba, in the basement of the Nacional, Hotel Nacional, and watching Obama's State of the Union. I love it.
Things are changing in Havana. Cubans are bracing for the small trickle of American tourists allowed in to burst into a flood after the Obama administration opened up a total of 12 categories of travelers allowed to the isolated island.
When what you're doing doesn't work for 50 years, it's time to try something new. And our shift in Cuba policy has the potential to end a legacy of mistrust in our hemisphere.
And on Wednesday, American diplomats arrived in Havana to begin historic talks with their Cuban counterparts. The American delegation is led by Roberta Jacobson, who becomes the first Assistant Secretary of State to visit Cuba in 38 years. The talks got off to a little bit of an ominous start here this week. This is the Russian Navy ship Viktor Leonov. She's a Vishnu-class Soviet-era intelligence gathering ship, arrived in Havana Harbor just as the U.S. delegation was getting set to come here to Havana. The Russians say there's nothing meant by this, just ordinary naval operations, but a lot of American officials and Cubans are taking note of their presence here. U.S. officials say it's not clear what can be accomplished by this first round of talks, but they hope to reopen the U.S. embassy here and make a new start in Cuba. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Eamon Javers in Havana.